We have my brother, Mr. Aaron Blaine, who is a retired Army Green Beret who deployed all over the world. We talk about growth, we talk about mindset, we talk about identifying your goals, we're talking about how to be action-oriented. He talks about his struggles with trauma and how you can overcome yours. After a quick episode sponsor break, we're going to be diving in. Do you want blissful balance in your personal and professional life? Great. What's up, guys? My name is Kerry Jack, and I want to help you happy hustle a life you love, one full of passion, purpose, and positive impact. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, a professional model / actor, a digital marketing specialist, a podcast host, author, a biohacker, an eco-warrior, a martial artist, a hippie cowboy, and a humanitarian. My goal is to educate, inspire, and entertain you to live a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. It is time to happy hustle your dream reality. Yee! All right, Mr. Aaron Blaine, my brother, welcome to the Happy Hustle podcast.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, man, this will be a doozy of an episode. I mean, you are a happy hustler for sure, retired Army Green Beret who deployed all over the world, including multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. You're the lead trainer at a men's emotional wellness organization, and you spent time working in the Alaskan bush as a safety guide for National Geographic, BBC. You're leading wilderness expeditions for special operations veterans returning home from war, and you coach men from all walks of life. You're also a certified yoga instructor, which I didn't know that about you, a hunter, and you're the host of the Action-Oriented podcast. You got a lot of cool things going on, man. You also have a beautiful wife, 2 wild boys, and 2 dogs, and you are a Montana man. We've been elk hunting together. We've just broed out in the gym and the hot springs, and you know, I just appreciate our friendship, man. And I'm excited to share your wisdom with the happy hustlers and really get into the mindset that you possess on how to take action, positive action at that, and really overcome adversity. But before we get into all that good stuff, Aaron, what is something interesting about yourself that not too many people know?
Let's see. I just found out that I have a great uncle that ran for president named James G. Blaine. He was a Republican senator from Maine, and he basically ran against Grover Cleveland. And the next day after the election, he was announced president of the United States, James G. Blaine. And then they did a recount, and they were like, sorry, bud, you lost. And so well, what's crazy about it though is I heard about it and then I looked him up and I was like, holy shit, it looks just like my grandpa. So like he's blatantly related to me because the genetics were there. So I just found that out. So not too many people know that.
Hey, that's a cool fun fact. I mean, I bet life would have been different if the recount didn't happen for you and your family. But
yeah, dude, I might have like an inheritance coming my way or something.
Exactly, man. Well, let's kick things off with a bang. You know, being a retired Army Green Beret, just explain to people what that means. And like, I know that's the top 1% of the entire military, but for those people who aren't familiar with the Green Berets, explain to people what that means exactly and what you have to do to earn it.
Yeah, sure. So, anybody in the Army can try out. There's a 3-week selection process that is pretty grueling. It's mostly physical and mental as well. It's down at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. I think like 400 guys went to my selection, and only 90 of us made it through. And then if you get selected, you move on to the Special Forces qualification course, which can be anywhere from like 16 to 24 months, depending on what your specialty is in the Special Forces. And so, I actually spent 6 years in the Air Force, and I really wanted to test myself in combat. And so I switched over to the Army, went to selection, and made it in and started the course back in like 2010 and spent the rest of my career on the teams. A lot of people don't know what Green Berets are. We stay pretty quiet. It's something that is a value of mine, and it's the reason that I didn't put myself out there for a long time, because I didn't want to be the poser, or the imposter guy. But there's there's so much value that's learned in the special forces, and I it was a rite of passage for me. It was a rite of passage for me from like boy to man, and then like once I got in, I had to continue. Like every day was a as a job interview for my job, and so you don't let down, you don't like let yourself go, because if you do, you get kicked off the teams. And so it's high pace, high performance all the time. We drink as hard as we play, or as hard as we work, and we work as hard as we play, and
Yeah.
it's a very intense, it's a very intense culture. But I tell you what, I learned, for me, what the physical and mental limits of myself could be,
Mm.
and then working with high performing humans all the time is something that's like completely invaluable. You get the accountability from your team, so if you're slacking off, you'll know about it real quick, and it sharpens you into a person that there's no way you could get that outside of the military. And so
Mm.
I'm really proud of my background. I value my experience in the military, and I got to do, yeah, like you said, less than 1% of the Army gets to do what we got to do, and with like the greatest men on the planet. And I walk on the shoulders of giants, because I mean, there's a lot of extraordinary men that have gone through the course and that have, been tested in combat and have gone on to do amazing things. And so, yeah, it's a really cool fraternity. There's nothing else like it. Like, they're my brothers, and yeah, we tend to find each other even after the military. And so I'm continuing to work with those guys with what I do. And yeah, I mean, the mission of the special forces, it's pretty broad. We do unconventional warfare, direct action, foreign internal defense. And so, you know, we don't have a straightforward mission. And a lot of times we're the ones on the ground basically designing the mission for other folks that are coming in. And it's kind of the opposite for the rest of the military, where they get told what to do, they go do it. But a lot of times for us, we get sent in, we understand what's going on the ground, we report back, and then basically the mission gets dictated by our intelligence, or our feedback from being on the ground. So there's a lot more autonomy, there's a lot more independence. You're trusted a bunch more than you really are anywhere else. And yeah, there's the cool thing is like we grow facial hair, and we got these big beards, and we're completely dirty every day, and we're out doing stuff. And it's a really cool feeling. It's like being a rock star in the military, because you walk into a dining facility or onto like a base with just like regular military people, and they're like, holy crap, there's one of those guys. And I got a lot from that. I thought that was cool. And like I said, I got to deal with some amazing dudes. And leaving the military was way more difficult than I thought it would be. Success is easy when you know what's expected of you, or what the parameters are, what the limits are. And then in the civilian world, it's not so clear. And
Mm.
you like in the military, especially on the special forces teams, you quickly understand what healthy, positive culture looks like, and what effective leadership looks like, and like what effective mission planning looks like. And so when you go like from the teams into the civilian world, it's really hard to transition, because you're not working with those high performing humans anymore. You're working with the rest of the populace, and like it's hard for us to let go of the high intensity and the values that come along with that. And so I've done 100 different jobs since leaving the Army, and I've landed on working for myself, because I just don't really fit in many other places. And I do that for many reasons. And we can get into that later, but I hope that satisfies the question that you asked.
For sure, brother. I mean, I just want to echo a couple points because, you know, first of all, you wanted to push yourself to reach your fullest potential. You left the Air Force to join the Green Berets and to really, push yourself. And I think that alone just speaks to your character. And a lot of people don't have that internal drive. And I know a lot of the happy hustlers out there do in their own unique way. And that's why they're listening and watching. But the thing that I'd
Sure.
like to go a little deeper into your military background, if it's cool. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I know we've talked about some of it extensively, but if you would share with the happy hustlers, like maybe the greatest difficulty you've faced in your combat tours, like if you had to distill it down like into like this is something that was like the greatest adversity that I faced? And then how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I could think of many things, and I'll slow down to try to figure out what the best example is. But for me, um, being on a team, as a young guy, you want to get out and get after it. Like that's what you're trained to do. I mean, you're trained to be the most lethal human being on the planet. And so, um, an analogy that I've heard is like you don't start a chainsaw without letting it eat, right? And so these guys, including myself, get out of the course, and we want to be tested. We want to go to combat. And as a young man, that's a secondary rite of passage after you become a Green Beret is like going into battle. And I'll tell you that you can never know what it feels like until you're there, until you're in
Hmm.
it, until you experience chaos and destruction and death. And then there's really no going back from that. And so my first deployment, experienced that quite a bit. And then by the time I rolled back around to my second deployment, I saw guys that came onto the teams that were hungry and wanted to get out. And, my advice to them or my feedback to them was like, be careful what you wish for in a lot of ways. And, it's something that sticks with you for life. It's something that I've had to get over. Trauma is trauma. I don't want to try to like I don't want to try to I don't know what you would say, but I'm not going to qualify it, I guess, or quantify it. But the certain things that are seen and done in a combat setting, it's stuff that you got to live with for the rest of your life. And there's decisions on the fly that you have to make right away that may or may not be the best case scenario, but you kind of have to act and move. And yeah, and so some of those things that I chose to do, or some of the things that I didn't choose to do, were impactful, into even my life now. And so,
Mm.
learning how to cope with that and learning how to use it as fuel and resilience, and help mentor and support other men that have the same problems. I don't want to call it PTSD. It's I call it post-traumatic growth now, which is like you experience what you experience in combat, and then you come home and you learn from it, and you use it to to leverage your life, or have more depth to you as you move through the world. And so yeah, like a lot of those things are pretty nuanced, and you don't really know what they're going to be like until you're in them. And so that
Mm.
was I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the intensity. I'm grateful for being able to be tested in combat. And I wasn't always the best at it, and learning to be okay with that too is has been a struggle. There were times where I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to get out of the truck today. Like it's
Mm.
fucking scary. And then
Mm.
there's times where it's like, dude, you're jumping out of the truck and you have no fear. And so I always tell people you can have Medal of Honor days where you show up and you're ready to go, and then you can have days where you for some reason you just don't want to move. And that's hard to deal with too when you leave the military and you feel like maybe in a situation you might have been a little bit of a coward, or you may have been not your best on that day and you didn't show up for your buddy, and that's something that you have to deal with too. And so yeah, there's all sorts of things. I mean, I could go on, but that was probably the one that stuck with me the most.
Yeah, man. And I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing it because I know it's not easy. And one of the things that I hope all the happy hustlers extract from that, piece of just post traumatic growth is like we can grow from these traumas that we experience. And maybe it's not in a combat setting for you out there listening right now, but I'm sure everyone can relate with trauma in some way, shape, or form. And I'd like to stay
Hmm.
here for a moment because, you know, I have seen you grow from it, and I've been around you, and I know that a lot of people don't come back from that. They just don't. They don't have the skills or the ability to overcome that trauma. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now who maybe are still in the shit. They're still in their own way, or they have these self-limiting shackles holding them back from the growth. And I'm wondering if you have a specific mantra or tactic or tool that you've used to quiet the noise in your brain to really stay centered when those feelings arise, when you have those triggers of trauma? Is there a method that you've seen effective in your life that you could share with the happy hustlers out there?
Yeah, 100%. So, I think the key to my success, if you want to call it that, has been just the openness and the ability to be vulnerable and try a lot of different things. And so, I joined a men's group when I first got out of the military, and it was a bunch of local guys here in Bozeman, Montana. I had no idea what to expect, but I went in open and curious. And what I found out is that like I had no access to my emotions or to my
Mm.
body. Um, I was going 100 mile an hour, and I didn't have a set of brakes. And so when I came into the men's group, I sat down, and all these guys are like meditating and like talking about their emotions. If I would have known that, I probably never would have showed up. But like, you know, I saw the value, as uncomfortable as it was. And I had a guy look at me my first day in the group, and he's like, "Hey, can I mimic your behavior right now?" And I said, "Sure." And he like grabbed onto the chair like he was on a roller coaster, and I looked down, and I was doing that. And I realized like when I looked around, the rest of the men were relaxed. They were slowed down. They were, very in touch with like who they were and, what they felt. And I realized that I had not been, was basically having, 25, 30 years of life experience just pent up. And, there's not a lot of outlets for that in the military or on the teams, and you don't see a lot of masculine guys talking about their emotions and getting into their body and meditating. And so that first night was pretty profound for me because I had an emotional release. And what happened was that same guy that asked me to mimic my behavior, he said, "Hey, can I give you permission to relax?" And I relaxed my body. And when I did, I just bursted into tears. And
Mm.
I cried for like 3 to 5 minutes. I don't remember, maybe it was 10. I don't really remember. But what I do remember is like all the men in the group. I mean, dude, you had like firefighters, you had therapists, you had, farmers, guys of all, walks of life. And they stood up and supported me. And, that was kind of my like transition back home, was like a welcome home and an integration through my own community. And so throughout that, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned what my kind of blind spots were. And what I learned the most is how to be in my body. And I think that sounds pretty weird, on the surface, but like understanding the nervous system and what triggers me and having the ability to understand that I can get out of my head, because the head and the brain, like in your thoughts, that's what puts people in a spiral. That's what put me in a spiral, is living in my head all the time. And
Mm.
so when I understood how to get into my body, I understood how to relax, and I understood how to take a step back. And when I take a step back and then I'm an observer of my emotions, I have the ability to move, a lot more freely. And so that was the number one thing. And it took a long time to like build the muscle memory of like, okay, what do I feel right now? And it's like, dude, I'd have that feeling just being in a bar or in a crowded space of just like on edge, like fight or flight. I'm ready to fight somebody right now. And once I was able to kind of calm myself down, breath work has been huge. Learning how to breathe and learning how
Mm.
to just be in the present moment has been the absolute best thing I could have learned. And I tried everything. I mean, I was screaming from the rooftops that I needed help. I knew something was going on. I just didn't know what. I had seen like 4 or 5 therapists. I'd worked with the VA. I'd gone on antidepressants. And just nothing seemed to really kind of work for me. And being in that men's group and understanding how to be Aaron Blaine in my body and in my emotions, and have access to the emotions and be able to actually claim them in any given moment, has taught me a lot. Like there's so much dexterity, there's so much fullness to life. And like, I think you said it one night when we were in the woods. It's like, well, I still have those feelings, but I'm able to manage them a lot better. I can
Mm.
manage my stress. I can manage my depression. I can manage my anxiety, and knowing that nothing's permanent. Nothing's permanent, and this is a part of me, and it just is what it is. And I have to take a step back 100 times a day because I still get ramped up, I still get angry.
Yeah.
But I've learned to have compassion. I've learned to have
Mm.
compassion for myself, and I've learned to have compassion for other people, and that has helped broaden the path for me in my career, and how I treat my family, and how I operate in the world is based off of me being able to take a step back and look at things from maybe one or two levels up of consciousness of like, okay, well, you know, this is like first reaction, first thought. Well, what's second, third, fourth, fifth thought? And it doesn't really take a whole lot of time if I'm actually present in the moment. I can step back. Am I a good listener? It's like, I don't think I ever used to be. I think I was kind of waiting for my turn to speak. And now it's like, no, I want to actively listen. I want to look somebody in the eye. I want to breathe, not think about what I'm saying, and be
Mm.
impacted by them. And that's been super helpful. I would have never imagined myself on a podcast before knowing how to do that, because I just always had something to say, right? Always just jumping the gun and living in my head. But now that I have this skill set, man, I don't think there's a skill set that's more valuable out there than being able to understand who you are inside, understand your nervous system, understand helps you understand your intuition. I know when I'm around energy that I don't want to be around. I know when I'm
Mhm.
around people I don't want to be around. But I also know when I want to be around people like you. I want to go hunting with you in the pouring down rain because that shit's fun,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, we got after it. Man, brother, that was profound. Like I hope everyone just rewinds like 10 minutes and just listens to this
Thank you.
this man, this masculine warrior, but getting into like there's the yin and the yang, there's the masculine and the feminine. And like oftentimes we get caught up in our heads and not enough in our hearts and our bodies. And that, you know, that has been a struggle for me too. We talked about it, but like, it's always funny when people find this out, like that the happy hustler went to years of anger management, and it's like, I don't talk about it too much, but it's the damn truth. I had to learn to manage my emotions. You know
Yeah.
had I had those, that fight or flight mentality and the vigilante side of me as well. I always did want to be in the military. I just didn't go that route after having a dictator-esque father. I told you about that, but I just didn't
Yeah.
want any
Didn't need
more
that
of that.
anymore.
I had authority my whole childhood. I was like, I don't, I want to be free. So, but
That's
anyway,
good cooking.
well, I respect the hell out of all you, and especially people in the special forces, because it just takes another level of discipline. But I can only imagine, you know, coming back from that and just experiencing, war and combat and trauma and death and losing your brothers and sisters, and just like that type of hostility and chaos, and then having to integrate into civilian life. And a good buddy of
Yeah.
mine, William Branham, he's been on the podcast, 26-year Navy SEAL veteran. He's big into supporting suicide prevention and brought that to my awareness for veterans. And I mean, I was floored when I heard the statistic of 22
Mhm.
22 and correct me if it's changed, but 22 veterans commit suicide every single day, according to the Veteran
That's the
Affairs
average.
Office. And
Yeah.
yeah, the average. And I mean, I'm just curious, and I know this is a touchy subject, and we talk a lot about happy hustling. We're going to get into your business and how this transition, but I do want to just kind of stay
Sure.
here for one more beat, because I know there's people out there who potentially are struggling, or they know someone who's struggling and they've contemplated, you know, taking their life. And personally, I've dealt with suicide internally, not for myself as much, but for my inner circle, my family, and having to combat that. And you know, it's not easy. And so I'm just curious if you have any insight as to maybe, you know, someone out there who is struggling. What would you say to that person, and how maybe have you assisted, some brothers and sisters, some veterans, in that state, and maybe any insight there? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Apologies for interrupting your programming, but I have to tell you, the best investment you can make in yourself is one in which helps you acquire skills. You've probably heard people talk about, oh, just invest in yourself and you'll be successful. Yes, that's true to a degree, but you have to invest in skills that will ultimately help you achieve your desired results. And I think one of the best skills one can possess, be it an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, is the sales sword. Really knowing how to sell, utilizing pressure free persuasion, which will make you more money and more impact. Now, if you want to know how to sell more efficiently and effectively, I just launched a sales course called The Proven Roadmap Process to Selling Millions of Dollars and helping you to increase your conversions guaranteed. And you can get access to this new sales course that the Happy Hustle is launching at thehappyhustle.com/sales. And if you act fast, you'll get it at the lowest price it'll ever be available because we are launching it and we want to gain amazing testimonials and social proof to further share this knowledge. So if you act fast, you can get it at the lowest price it'll ever be. That's at thehappyhustle.com/sales. Now let's get back to this episode.
Yeah, 100%, man. For one, it's like, get out of your head, get out of your
Yeah.
head and into your body, as uncomfortable as that might be. And two, like, just knowing that everything is temporary. Like, you could have done the most hellacious thing in the world. And, I know like career criminals and guys that have committed felonies that are out of prison and they're living for themselves and they have fulfillment. It's like, it is possible. And getting to the eye of the storm is usually the most difficult part. And if you're in it, you're in it, and it seems like there is no continuing, or there seems like there is no like cure for it. And I'll tell you that there is, and that you're worth it. And the big thing is like, if you're a veteran listening to this, know that your brothers would have wanted you to thrive. The guys that are gone, like, they're gone, but they want you to thrive in life. And if you can
Mm,
do it for them, if not yourself, like, do it for something. And for me, it was my kid. And so,
yeah.
I've told this story several times on podcasts, but like, I took what I thought was going to be a one-way walk into the backcountry, and went back, found a spot, and for whatever reason, I shifted my mindset and I went back home. And that day, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, said, "Hey, I think you should go take a look on your desk." And there was a pregnancy test, and it was positive.
Oh my goodness.
And I was going to have my first boy. And so that was enough to like pull me out of a huge rut. And I called my brother and I was like, I got to get my shit together now because I'm about to be a dad. And that's how I set out on this whole journey. My son saved my life 100%.
Mm,
Because I didn't, I didn't think I had much to live for. I didn't think I had the ability to get out of the rut that I was in, and I just hurt so bad, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I think there's a lot less stigma out now than there used to be, but asking for help, especially while you're on the teams and while you're in the military, that grants you like restriction for the rest of your career. So you may never deploy, you may never go to a school again because you've been labeled, with PTSD, you've been labeled depression, you've been labeled with whatever it is that they deem that you're going through at the time. And so there is a stigma, and there has been for a while, for everybody just to say I'm doing great. We used to fill out these surveys in the military, as your mental health surveys, and dude, all the guys on my team, 10 out of 10, of course, we got this, right? We can step back into the fight and just keep going no matter what. Well, sure, maybe while you're in, but you got to take a knee sometimes. And like, I don't know, man, it took a lot for me afterwards to be honest on those questionnaires and to go to a doctor's office or a therapist and to say, you know what, like, I'm a 1 out of 10 right now.
mm,
And having that be okay, and knowing that it's an opportunity to go back. You can get back to the 10 if you do the work. But man, it's not easy. And I would
yeah.
say, like, for a lot of guys, and I don't know, this was the case for me, is that it was that bad for me to where I thought the only option was to eliminate the threat, and the threat was me. And so
Mm,
it can feel that way for sure. And you can get in your head and you can spin in circles. And what I would also say is find something to disrupt that spiral,
yeah.
whether it's breath work, whether it's, meeting up with a buddy, and creating a ritual where maybe you meet a friend that you really trust, like once a week for a beer or coffee or whatever it is. But like you've got to have community and you have to find ways to cope with what's going on internally. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, that's a path to personal freedom. That's a path to spiritual freedom for me, is being able to like go into the eye of the storm and look at myself objectively and be like, man, I'm fucked up and I gotta check myself and I gotta figure out how to get out of this. And it's not, everybody's got different bootstraps. My brother says that. He said, some people have leather bootstraps that are ready to go, and some people it's paper mache, and it's really hard to tighten those bootstraps up. But um, there is a way, and there's a lot of people that care about you. And yeah, I'd say find your source for me. Like my source is like listening to Led Zeppelin and rocking out in my garage with my son while we work on cars, or we play around with tools, or we make projects. And like, dude, that gets me out of my funk, because I'm not gonna lie, even though that was a long time ago, those thoughts creep in sometimes when you're at your
Yeah.
worst, or you have a lot of stress on your plate, or when you're the sole provider of your family and you lose your job, and it's like, holy shit, even those weaknesses creep back up. They don't just go away forever.
Yeah, man. Powerful. I had chills for a good portion of that. I know you told me that too. And, it's just one of those things like we all have these toxic thoughts. Yeah, I don't even want to label them toxic, but they're just human thoughts, and it's like it is something that you need to figure out a bigger why. For you, it was your son, and I think that is so important to just make sure that you have a why, that fuel to your fire that will help you persevere past that adversity. And I don't think materialistic things do it. Like really, it's just they're not strong enough when the shit hits the fan. You need something deep, you need something emotionally charged, you need something that's bigger than yourself. And that goes for your business, that goes for, you know, your marriage, that goes for your relationship with your family. Like if you're going to happy hustle anything in life, you need to have that why, and it needs to be emotionally charged, it needs to be strong. And especially if you're contemplating life and you're really feeling it,
Mhm.
like Aaron said, just getting out of your head. And again, I want to echo the point of just being in your body, connecting to your breath, listening to nature, like
Yeah.
praying to God, whatever it is for you. I think that really resonates, man. And I know this podcast can help a lot of people just from what you've said. And so I hope, this resonates for everyone out there, and maybe share this with someone who needs these words, because it's not easy out there. Like what, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety and energy, outside world variables that, let's be straight up, like as a human being, we are just not equipped to oftentimes handle these 10,000 dopamine hits a day just from our little plastic device and glass, thing in our, it's just like we're
Yeah.
outmatched, it's so
Good
much.
way to
And
put it.
you know you think about like the the amount of time and energy these developers in, let's just call it, San Francisco and Silicon Valley, go into just making Instagram addictive. Like your human brain, your mammalian brain does not have the capacity to delineate the addictive properties versus the ones that will serve you. So you get hooked into it, and then you can compare and despair your life to others. And then you go home and then you think about, oh, and then we have this negativity bias as human beings where it takes literally eight positive things to counteract one negative thing. That's why the news cycle is negative. And I'm on my soapbox ranting here, but it's the damn truth.
No,
It's like,
you're right.
you get it. I mean, like it's one of those things that we
Yeah.
just we're not able to adapt and overcome as we once were, to the minimal amount of external stimuli as it is the magnitude nowadays. I mean, what's your thoughts? I know we kind of got on a tangent here, but what's your thoughts on just managing all that stimuli?
Yeah, I would say like get away from it as much as you can. Set limits on yourself. I set limits on my social media. I set limits on how long I sit on my computer, because one thing I started action oriented, and like I
Mm,
kind of feel like I have to live up to the name in order to like carry this brand and embody it. And so it's like, okay, how much time am I spending on my computer, and how much actual work am I doing? How much time am
mm,
I doing all these things and reprioritizing and being a lot more realistic about my timelines? And so instead of me scrolling through Instagram at lunch, I go do a 30-minute session, a breath work or yoga session in my studio. And I know that sometimes you need to unwind, or sometimes you need to just like sit back and kick it, and that's okay. But also, like, I've realized that there's all these gaps in a day, and there's all these gaps in an evening where you, instead of watching Netflix, you're reading a book to your kid. Instead of, look at, say, what am I doing and what could I do instead? And I'll
yeah.
tell you that, like, for me, I don't need to work an 8 to 10 hour day. I don't fit into the 9 to 5, grind of conventional corporate work, because like
Amen.
99% of the time, what I see is people sitting on their computers. What I see is people waiting for the clock to turn 4 or 5 o'clock so they can go home. And it's like, no, man, if I can get enough work done in these moments, and if I can be super disciplined, just as I was as a Green Beret, about my time and about the activities that I put myself into, then I can have the freedom to do what I want. So I have the freedom to pick my kid up at school. I have the freedom to go to sports events. I have the freedom to go hunting with you on a weekend.
Yeah.
But if I didn't prioritize my time, and like, I think everything's a ceremony. And everything that you do in life is a ceremony. And if that's going through Instagram for 30 minutes and you value that, go for it. But I would venture to say there's probably a lot more healthy things that you can do out there. And like, if you were to break down my day, it probably sounds like a lot to folks, but like, I meal prep on Sunday. I get everything ready, and I pack it up, and it's ready to go. And like, even though that takes me 2 3 hours, in full, I have lunches for the week. And it's like, that gives me the ability to go stretch out in the living room or outside the studio, or you know I don't know, do something thoughtful for someone. Like, I can't tell you how many things I have like racked up on my board of like, oh, I've got to like write this like handwritten letter, or like meet up with a friend, or all these things I want to fit into my life, that I figure out how to do it because it's important to me, instead
Mm.
of the doom scroll. Because listen, like,
Yeah.
COVID was the first time I was like, damn, I was like, I've got some really intense anxiety. And when I took a step back, I was like, the reason is because I can't get off Instagram. I can't get off
Mm,
LinkedIn. I can't get off of like looking at all this content and stimuli. And once I settled it down, and what I have found for me is to make my world as small as I can. And so I used to think I had to connect with everybody and, build networks and, do all this crazy shit. And it's like, no, dude, like, I doubled down on the people that are 10 out of 10 people for me, like you, like Mike, like the people that we know, like, through the gym. It's like, I double down on that. Instead of saying yes to everybody, I say yes to the things that are the hell yes.
yeah.
And that gives me the ability to stay grounded and to be accountable, and to also, like I said, just manage my time correctly.
Yeah. Oh, some gold there. I mean, you nailed it with like the happy hustle ethos. And that's just, you're preaching to the choir. I'm working typically about 20 hours a week. And sometimes I will be honest, like I feel guilty about my calendar and the lack of time I take to put forth to my mission, because I feel like, oh, I could be doing more. And there's always that more mentality.
Sure.
But for me, it's what am I doing in that time? And is it the most valuable task, my NVT of the day? That is what I look at. My key three of, okay, what if I did nothing else today? I write it down every day. My key three tasks of what, if I do
Yep.
these three things, it's a win. And that's what allows me to work less, but make more income, more impact than ever before. And I hope you're hearing Aaron too. It's like, it's non-traditional. We have been trained in this 9 to 5 grind
Mhm.
culture, and a lot of people actually glorify the grind. Hey, I'm working on the weekends, look at me, blah blah blah. It's like, I
No,
personally
thank you.
feel bad for you. I'm like, no, if that's your thing and you want to grind, and do it, like, for sure, do your thing, man. I'm not going to judge it, but like, And personally, I see a lot of people who have the quote unquote success, but they don't have the fulfillment. They're not happy hustling a life that they truly love. They might have wealth with their, you know, fiat currency, but then their marriage is falling apart. Their kids don't even know them. They literally, like, their clients are like, their churn rate with their team. It's just like none of it is to the degree that I would deem success. And I think that is something I always like to really, stop and just ask the question, what is your actual definition of success? Not only, Aaron, I want to hear yours, but I want to hear everyone else, like, internally, I guess,
Sure.
energetically, think about that question and define success both personally and professionally. For you, what does it look like? I mean, if you had to define
Yeah.
success, quote unquote, what would you say it is?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think it's very clear for me. So I have my bank account over here, but then I have my life account over here.
Mm,
And what I'm paying attention to more is my life account. So
mm,
those are, connective experiences with friends and family and people that I love. It's fulfillment in my work, and it's, you know, getting at the end of the day, putting my phone down before I even walk into my house and know that I have a loving family and we're going to eat dinner together and I'm going to play with my son. And like, when my son tells me, "Hey, I love you, daddy," at the end of the night, like, that's success for me. Or when
yeah.
my wife says, "I'm so glad that you're home. I'm so glad that you're around." That's success for me. And so I don't pay too much attention to the bank account, even though that's important and I need to be able to pay to live here in Bozeman, which is a little bit stressful compared to
Yeah.
other places.
Yeah.
But however, the life account is always front and center. And I learned that from a mentor of mine. Uh, you know, Charlie Whittingham, he told me, "Hey, dude," he's like, "I've made a lot of money," and he has, and he's like, "Listen," he's like, "that shit doesn't matter. It's the life account that matters. It's the
Mm,
thoughtfulness that you put in your family and your friendships and the people that you care about, and when you get return on investment there, it's not transactional. It's intrinsic. So it's
mm,
intrinsic that's what I want to pay for is intrinsic value. So I want to put the work forward to get it, which is to be thoughtful, to be emotionally present, to have people count on me and rely on me for the person that I am. And then guess what? I get it back in dividends. I get
oh,
it back in friendship. I have, if I break down the side of the road in Bozeman, I have 100 people to call because I have good friends. I have good people in my life. And that is value, that's success. I don't want to get to the end, whenever the end is for me and like be laying on my deathbed and going, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I wish I would have like handwritten birthday cards for people instead of just like sending them cash. Like, there's all these things that like if you get into a groove and know what you want, like understand what was meaningful for you and what the feeling of love and the feeling of fulfillment is for you, like that might be what other people want to feel too. And so it's really cool because you can provide that for people with no expectation to get it back. But I'll tell you, it does come back. It comes back in dividends and it's worth it. And it means way more than money.
mm. Preach it, brother. Damn. Just absolute fuego. I love it. I mean, it is like such a great depiction. You got your life account and then you have your bank account. And at the end of the day, like, when it's all said and done, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about wanting more money at the end of their life. They want more rich experiences. They want more meaningful connections. That is what life is
Mhm.
truly about. You cannot take it with you. It's just one of those things. It's like this accumulation game. And then at the end, it's like, okay, here, let me push all the monopoly money back on the board because it ain't coming with me. And maybe my family gets it, but I really want my family to get it? Because, like, oftentimes wealth will spoil a generation of a family. Like, you've seen it.
Totally.
Most of wealth, I know. I had Rich Christensen, who consults for billionaires, on the mic, and he was given statistics about how many wealthy families literally lose their wealth. It's like every third generation, they just destroy their wealth. It makes weak men and women. And unfortunately, that does not forge quality character. And it's one of those things. right now, if you're stressing about your bank account, look at your life account and see how that's
Yeah.
actually doing and really take stock. And I thought that was a beautiful representation of success for you, man. So this has been phenomenal. It's exceeded expectations, brother. And I already uh,
Good.
I know this is gonna just be powerful for a lot of people. I do want to talk about
Thanks.
action oriented and just like the podcast and what was the genesis of that and where can people go to give it a listen?
Yeah, thanks. So, action oriented was an idea that came to me after leaving the grind of the 9 to 5, and I realized that like I wasn't too action oriented when I had a 9 to 5 job. I went to work and I did what I was told, and I came home and I just lacked a lot of fulfillment. And then, you know, over the years, probably the last 5 years, I've tried to figure out how to put myself into the world that provides for me, provides for my family, and provides like value to the world and be a contributing member of society. That's what I want. And what I realized is that I was being a perfectionist about a lot of things. In order to do a podcast, it has to be perfect. In order to do this, it has to be perfect. In order to do all these things, it's got to look a certain way. And I'll tell you that like that perfection got in the way of good enough.
Mm,
And when I left my like fourth corporate job in like 5 years, you know, I had this like moment of getting hit in the gut and it hurt. And I'm like, man, maybe I just can't get along with people, or maybe I don't fit in the culture. And then, the mindset shift was like, no, kick down the door and take control of your life, Aaron,
mm,
because you have a lot to give, you have a lot of experience. And what I have found is that action is the antithesis of depression for me.
mm.
And so when I'm taking action and I'm moving and when I'm making moves, I have fulfillment. I get up and I'm excited to go through my day. And so action oriented was, you know, a lot of things. But for me, it's like when you take action and you go for it, you're going to either fail, which is also successful because you get to learn something,
Yeah.
or hell, you might succeed. And I launched my podcast, 2 weeks ago, and I was like, dude, people are either going to like it or they're not. But what I'm certain of is that I feel good about what I'm talking about.
Mm,
I understand what I'm talking about. And I kind of did before, but now I trust that I do.
mm,
And so to see the subscribers coming in and the downloads, it just gives me so much validation that it's like, oh no, people are actually interested in this content. And I'm getting more confident about putting myself into the world. And what I know for sure is that when I ask a guy, what are your values and how are you living your life? And he doesn't know right off the bat, then you're stuck. I know that you're stuck. And so we need to reevaluate. Well, first slow down, and usually in a nature-based setting is what I do most,
hmm.
and come up with what your values are.
Yeah.
What is your code as a man or a woman, and how are you living those things? And I think we all like kind of think we know inside, but and this is what shaped me into the person that I am post military, is that I had a guy tell me, you don't know your values. And he was willing to hold me accountable, ask me that question, and then say, you need to come up with them, put them on your refrigerator. And so that's what I did. And I was able to get into a groove that worked for me. And so action oriented is like a culmination of like my time in the special operations, my time, leading wilderness trips for, Gold Star families and kids in the military, people in the military, and then also just like the general populace, and putting it all together into, I think, a really attractive format of like, hey, like let's take action. And what I also know is that like when I'm physically in the best shape of my life, that's like the top shelf right there.
Yep.
And if I start there and work my way down, that discipline and what comes out of that gives me room, gives me energy, gives me fulfillment to put myself into the world in the way that I want to the way that I embody it.
Mm,
And so, yeah, action like came from, well, the guy who helped me start this podcast, him, Adam.
hmm.
He came to my house, probably 2 years ago, and he's like, "Hey, buddy," he's like, "I know you, and I know you well, and you're not yourself." And so we're sitting in my garage, and I said, "Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm in a rut, and I'm stuck. What do I do?" And he's like, let's get to the gym
Mm.
tomorrow. And so that's when I started working out at Bozeman Hot Springs,
Mhm.
and we put together a sustainable plan. And 6 months later, I was completely hooked. That there was no way I was going to not wake up at 5 a.m. I got my diet sorted out. I saw a naturopath. I found out I had a food allergy. Like I started prioritizing wellness,
Mm.
and that helped me to take action. So now I wake up at 5:30 every day. I go to the gym, I go through my day, I get what I need done, and then I have time and energy for my family when I get home too. And so action oriented is just about getting people. I think you need a third party, or you need somebody else to help support you
Mhm.
and mirror you and like push you to know that you're worth it, and know that like it is possible to come up with your values, figure out how to live them, and then build a sustainable plan to get you what you want. I think everybody deserves the life that they want, and they have the ability to get it. It's just that, like you said, the social media and all the all the materialistic things get in the way, or whatever programming that we're built that has been built in or burned into our soul
Yeah.
to make us the way we are. There's a way to disrupt that. There's a way to get out of that. And it's by slowing the hell down, figuring out what you want, and then taking very small sustainable steps on how to get there.
Mm.
And that's what I help people do. And then additionally with the podcast, I love storytelling. My dad was a good storyteller, my grandpa was a good storyteller, but I want to hear everybody's story. I want to bring extraordinary people onto my podcast, and I want to highlight the failures. I want to highlight the struggles because of the day and age we live in, of the shiny, polished Instagram
Yep.
bullshit that we see. It's not real. It's just like the eight week abs, or
Yeah.
get ripped in 6 months. No, it's actually not possible. Like, you have to build a sustainable plan that takes time and takes struggle and failure and adversity. And like, for me, getting uncomfortable is the very first step. It's like, well, after you slow down, after you know what you want, it's like, get uncomfortable
Mm.
and move forward, because action breeds being able to like live a life of fulfillment. If you know what you want and you go towards it, it's possible, and I think everyone deserves it.
Ooh. Preach it, man. Action is the antithesis of depression. And I think that perfectionism is really something that holds so many people back. Like, I always say, good
Mhm.
and done is better than perfect and never finished. And I think that
That's
I
right.
don't even know where I heard that, because I don't want to take credit for it, because I think it's profound, but it resonated with me. And ever since I heard that, I was like, hey, it's good and done. I'm going to iterate and evolve. After it's out to the
Yeah.
world, I'm going to get feedback. Same thing with you with the Happy Hustle podcast, man. I was like, I'm going to commit to 200 episodes. I don't care if anyone listens or everyone listens, but that is happening. I'm doing it. There's nothing going to stop me. And, here we are going on almost 400 episodes, apparently now top
Yeah.
0.5% globally ranked podcast in the world based on downloads. And, I just committed to the action of doing the damn work, even if I don't feel like it. And, it's one of those things.
That's the
Yeah, that is the trick. So take action. I hope everyone takes action and goes and listens, because I'm going to come and rock the mic with you in the studio soon. I'm looking forward to it, man. Um, One thing, too, I want to
absolutely,
mention,
man.
you have these wilderness trips. I also do wilderness trips for entrepreneurs. I'm going to come on one of yours. I know you're going to come on one of mine. I believe, dude, those are like some of the most powerful experiences, just getting out in nature's glory, rewilding. We don't do it enough. And, I think what you're doing is so awesome, especially that you're doing it in like one of the coolest places in the entire world, Yellowstone National Park, right? Tell us about this expedition and where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, thank you. So, I actually inherited this expedition from a friend, and his expedition basically didn't take off. He already put down a down payment, and so it was super short notice. And me and my partner, Nick Jones, he's a retired Marine Raider, and what we came up with is that, like, we want to own our worth. We want to own who we are and our experience that we've had, not only in the military, but reinventing ourselves as humans and living a life of fulfillment and wellness. And when we combined our service and we combine those values, we set up an expedition to lead civilians, entrepreneurs, young men, whoever, most, it's going to be men that want to draw a line in the sand and say, this is who I want to be, and this is where I want to go. And I think like what happens in nature, it just works.
Yeah.
When you have intention and you move through the most beautiful place in the world, it is profound what happens. And I've done a ton of these, and every single time I'm fulfilled. I have more energy at the end, even if I hiked 50 miles through the park. And guys that are like have no physical fitness whatsoever, they show up and they hate the first day, and they're hurting, and then by the end they're running up mountains. We had a guy that was like 260 one time, and he smoked like a freight train, and he was like the last guy for the first couple days, and we were just barely, he was barely keeping up with us. And by like the fourth or fifth day, he got some sort of fuel inside, something lit him up,
Yeah.
and he was running
Yeah.
up mountains. He quit smoking. I talked to him 6 months after the expedition. He lost all this weight, and now he's thriving in life. And that's just one story. And it's like, if you're feeling stuck and you feel like you're just not getting through that threshold, sometimes it takes a push. And Nick and I are equipped to push people, and that's what we want to do in a compassionate way. And it's not going to be all torture. Like, we're going to have days where we do nothing. We're going to have days where we get in cold water. We're going to have movement of some sort every day, whether it be yoga or breath work or some sort of modality to get us in the spirit of basically transformation. And so it's called the Inner Compass Expedition. You can find it on Eventbrite. You can find it on my page, on my LinkedIn page, Aaron Blaine. It's on my Instagram, Be Action Oriented. My website's being developed, and so it's not quite up yet. But this expedition is going to be profound, and we have like 6 spots left. And so I'd like to fill those spots. It's $2,500 to come on, which is, I think you can attest to, it's a very nominal fee
Yeah.
to get to walk through the most pristine part of Yellowstone. And like, these permits that we got are like once in a lifetime permits to go through,
Yeah.
a beautiful part of the park. And so the campsites are reserved. We're going to rock climb at the front end. We're going to build some confidence and rapport with each other. We're going to eat like kings, and we're going to move through the park as a unit. And we're going to support each other no matter what that is. And we're going to push each other for our goals and our values. And we're going to come out the other side better people. I do every time, and I know my clients do every time. And I have the benefit of having another warrior, Nick, on my team now, and he brings a ton of value. And so this will be our first expedition together, but I'm super excited about it, and I appreciate you letting me plug it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, man.
I hope to see you on one day. I'll be on one of yours too.
Yeah, brother, for sure, man. We'll link all that up in the show notes too, so people can just click on it if they want to apply. But take action on this, guys.
Sure.
It's going to be a badass trip. Something happens in the wilderness that you can't get in a boardroom. You can't get in your bubble.
No.
It's not even fathomable what nature does for us to just get into our primal nature. The breakthroughs take place out there, and I am highly
Well,
recommending
let me
it.
say one more thing.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing about it is there's a book called The 3-Day Effect, and
Yep.
I don't claim to be a neurobiologist, but the 3-Day Effect basically says it takes 3 full days in nature to completely rewire your brain.
Yeah.
And I tell you, that's no exaggeration. I feel it every single time. There's something that drops out the bottom on like the second or third, maybe
Yep.
even
Yep.
fourth day. It happens. It happens, and it broadens your aperture into nature, into life. You don't have any distractions. There's no cell phones. There is no Instagram or TikTok
Yeah.
or Facebook or anything out in the world.
Yeah.
And you're in full tilt wilderness. You're basically living with the grizzly bears, bison, mountain lions. I mean, they're all like, you're in as much of nature as you're ever going to be, and it is transformational.
Oh
And I
yeah.
recommend, even if you don't go with your carry, get out in the woods,
Yeah,
go camping,
dude.
get uncomfortable, get dirty. Don't shower for a week. It feels great. Like,
Yeah.
jump in a backcountry lake. Like, there's so many benefits that, and you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I reference the 3-day effect regularly because that's why the Montana masterminds are the duration 5 days, because it's that magical number.
Mhm.
Once you get yourself in
It is.
nature, like, and just tune your circadian rhythm to the sun and ground yourself on Mother Earth, it's just like this is what it's all
Mm-hmm.
about. So yeah, I'm stoked, man. I am really looking forward to coming with you, and vice versa, man. So yeah, check that out, guys. Now, Aaron, I want to just end this with some just quick nuggets for all the happy hustlers. Give us a happy hustle hack in each of these different disciplines. You know, this can be like a tip, a tool, a tactic, something regarding health. I know we talked a lot about it, but do you have something a little unique that we could deem a happy hustle hack for the happy hustlers out there?
Oh man, for me, wow, I have a lot of them, but the one I've been practicing most recently is I listen to a Huberman podcast. So it's not my hack, it's Andrew Huberman's, but he basically said when you get done working out and you do a high intensity, session at the gym, it's more about your nervous system regulating to get the benefits from the workout than it is doing the workout. And so, what he recommends is going immediately after a workout, finding a quiet place, and doing some nose breathing for about 5 to 7 minutes, or as long as you can. And basically, and I may completely screw this up, but I think I'm getting the point across here, which is that like your nervous system's wrecked by the time you get done doing a high intensity hit workout, or you get off the treadmill, or you doing powerlifting, whatever it is that you do, and your nervous system needs to come down to a rest and digest in order for your body to start recovering, in order for it to take on the benefits and to start recovering.
Hmm.
And so what I have found in the last like 9 months or so is that it's a religion for me to slow down every time I get done working out, do that nose breathing, relax myself, and go into my day with a more calm and grounded energy. Because if I go straight from the gym to work, like I'm still like in it, my nervous system's still in it. But
Yeah.
if I just take, and he's like, dude, if you got 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes, like that's important too. Like that's okay too. And so that's my like most like recent hack. I love neurobiology. I love trying to understand how the brain works.
Hmm.
And essentially what he said is like if you slow down in those moments post workout, let yourself get into rest digest, it's like sending a quick email to your nervous system that says, "All right, cool, we're done."
Yeah.
And like start doing your thing, tell your body to start doing its thing. But if you go straight into work in that red line in your nervous system, it's like the Pony Express. It takes a while for your body to understand that it's time to rest and digest. It's time to recover. And so it's a hack because it's like a more of an immediate signal to your body that says, let's get on with it.
Yeah. That's powerful. I like it, man. Let's talk about money. Just a quick happy hustle hack in regards to money. You know, I know we talked about the life account and the bank account and separating those, but do you have something just that you have seen effective in your life to save or invest or spend wisely that you could share?
Oh man. For me, it's just about paying attention to what I'm spending money on. I used to go to coffee shops. I used to just, by the end of the day, I've spent 30, $40 each day, but that 30 or $40 adds up. And so that's my biggest hack. It's probably on the lower end of the spectrum, but I try to spend the least amount of money through my day as possible. The impulse buys,
Mm,
or, going out to dinner, drinks, and all that stuff means absolutely nothing to me. But if I can save that money, that's a couple hundred, even $1,000 a month sometimes,
mm,
and putting that away and putting it in a separate account, or assigning it to something different like a vacation. Like that's what my wife and I have done. Like another financial hack, which is pretty normal. I mean, I think a lot of people do this, but we get like the Chase Sapphire cards and all the cards that build up points, and we put all of our expenses on those credit cards
mm.
so that way we're constantly building points.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, like this year for Christmas, we're going to Hawaii for the first time, and
Awesome.
we haven't been out of the state of Montana for a while, but now we have the ability to do that, and we didn't spend a dime on the vacation that we're about to have, is because we prioritized experiences
Mm,
over that bank account. And instead of me buying a Starbucks coffee every single day, like we get to fly to Hawaii, we get to stay in a cool resort, we get to spend time as a family. And so I always look at those things of like just the small stuff that you don't think about that you
mhm.
can cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the clothes that you buy, it's like, dude, I shop at Murdoch's. I don't buy designer shit. And I try to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
but also like, yeah, just be reasonable with the amount of money. Cause I used to spend my whole paycheck within weeks of having it when I was a young guy. And, I'd go out and buy new clothes. I'd buy the next best thing, technology, whatever it is. But, now I'm a lot more conscious
Yeah.
and I'm probably behind on a lot of fashion and stuff like that, but I don't care because I'm a dad
Yeah.
and I can wear Crocs. I can wear Crocs and a fanny pack and feel good about it. And, yeah, that's me being a dad. So
Hey, right on, brother. I mean, just being a conscious consumer and just, I think, is it a need or is it a want? I always put it through that filter, And so that's just something that's been beneficial. Last happy hustle hack question, and then we'll get into the rapid fire round. Then we'll wrap this up. When it comes to spirituality, I don't really care what religion or another of the happy hustlers believe in. I just think it's important to have faith in something bigger than yourself. What would you say is a happy hustle
mhm.
hack in this arena, a way that you connect to a higher power?
Dude, that's a great question. And I hope this is a great answer. But for me, spirituality has transformed from for me, it used to be a book and a person and a thing that was exterior. It was far removed from me, and getting that thing closer to myself and trying to understand what lights me up, what makes me feel love, what makes me feel value, what like how does my body feel when I'm in an experience. That's more of spirituality for me. That's a more clearly defined spiritual practice for me, is to embody the things that I love and support me and my family and the people that I care about. And there's a groove that I've been able to get into that has been clearly magnetic for me, for the organization that I'm building, because it comes out like everything that I'm doing with my work and my podcast and my business is all based on things that I love, and things that fill me up and light me up and make me feel a certain way. And for that, it's like discipline, integrity. I have reverence for those things. And, the more I can actually live the things that I'm saying, and embody that, like that's spirituality for me. Cause I get to like clean up my side of the street and I can sleep well at night.
Mm,
It's like that's spirituality to me because it's making me feel good about myself, self love.
yeah.
I mean, dude, I read that book and, you're very close to Michael Singer, but that book changed my life.
Yeah.
The, Untethered Soul,
Yeah.
and just like listening to your thoughts, listening to all of the noise and taking a step back and kind of creating a life that makes the most sense for me and my family.
Yeah.
That's spirituality for me. I mean, I've had I've had experiences of like looking at enlightenment. I'll never say that I'm enlightened, but like, man, I've had these moments of like, wow, that feels like God, whatever it is. And I have reverence for that. I have respect for it.
Hmm. Yeah, man.
And like for me, I don't think that I don't think that like if your religion scares you and like it puts you in a place of like being docile or scared to make a choice, like maybe it's time to find out what makes you feel good and what you love, and how to put yourself into those circumstances. So
Yeah.
I will never assign a religion or say a religion's bad. Like I've been all over the world. I've seen a multitude of cultures and a multitude of practices, and I say heck yeah to them all. Like I say heck yeah to them all if you feel something and it gives you what you need and it's got community
Yeah.
and there's spirit, like actual spirit involved, like that's a win, man.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man.
Higher than yourself. Something higher than yourself.
That's it right there. Just figure out what works for you to connect and just go deep into that faith. I just think having faith is something bigger than yourself is what it's all about. So,
Oh yeah.
man, powerful,
Yeah,
bro.
you don't have yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go this rapid fire round and then we'll wrap this up. So, this is just where I ask random questions and you answer honestly, first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, favorite food, go.
Steak.
Favorite movie,
Oh, Stand By Me.
favorite book,
Untethered Soul.
what's your spirit animal?
Um, a giraffe.
Make the sound of your action oriented, happy hustle war cry. Three things you're most grateful for.
Oh, my family, my health, and my friendships.
Best business advice.
Don't make it your identity.
Mm. And if you had a billboard for your world for the world to see with your last piece of content on it, what's that billboard read?
Fill that life account, baby.
Woo! Crush that rapid fire round, brother. And listen, man, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for sharing your love, your light, your wisdom, just your unapologetic self, your vulnerability, man. I just appreciate you, man. I'm so grateful to call you a brother and just to bro out with you and looking forward to just collaborating and supporting you in your journey as you build just such an amazing thing that I know is going to impact so many lives. So thank you, bro.
Dude, thank you for having me on, man. It's been a long time coming, and I can't wait to have you on mine. So, dude, appreciate the platform, brother.
Yeah, of course. And best place for everyone to connect with you online. What's the best place?
But be action oriented on Instagram.
Okay.
As my website starts to, finally gets built, then I'll have a better answer. But yeah, I think Instagram's where most people are or know where to go, and so it's be underscore action underscore oriented, and I'll answer your questions. I'll work with you. LinkedIn is another good place to start, and then also just my email of the action oriented podcast at gmail.com.
Awesome, brother. All right. Final question. What does happy hustling mean to you?
Means doing something that you love, that you wake up each day and you're excited for, and it also fills up other parts of your life that you care about, like your family and the people that you love. And once that goes away, find something new.
Ooh, mic drop. Aaron Blaine, y'all. Thank you for watching and listening. We are out. Peace and love, everyone.